Today's gospel reading comes out of the 15th chapter of Luke, verses 1 to 3 and verse 11 to 32. It is naturally that story of the young son who wants his inheritance, and then he gets it and he lives a life of dissipation. Now, this gospel reading and that son, they are referred to as a certain title, a certain name. What is the name of this gospel reading that I just read, and the son in particular? Okay, it's called this right here. It's called the story of the prodigal son. Now, the word prodigal is a French word, and the French word for the word prodigal simply means this. It means to drive away, to move away. You see, in life, a lot of people are prodigal. A lot of people want to move away. You know, you might have a son or daughter when they were 11, 12, 13 years old. One of them might have said, I'm going to stay here in Lower Burrell forever. The other one might have said, I can't wait till they get older because I'm not sticking around here. I'm leaving. It's okay to be prodigal. It's okay to have that desire to spread your wings and to move on. But this father realized what? He thought to himself, this is dangerous. My son is young. He wants to leave. That's okay. But he wants to leave with all of his money. And when you're young and you got a lot of money and you're going to be foolish, you're going to wind up in trouble. And that's exactly what happened to the young son. Let's take a look at verse 13 that describes this well. Again, 15th chapter of Luke. After receiving his inheritance, the younger son collected all of his belongings and set off to a distant country where he squandered his inheritance on a life of dissipation. What I find amazing about the young son is this. Not only did he spend his life on dissipation, overconsumption, indulgence, promiscuity, it is amazing that he only ruined his finances. He did not ruin his life. He was spiraling out of control. He was working his way to the bottom. He was getting ready to bottom out. And then all of a sudden, something was able to turn him around. Something saved his life. Something made him realize, uh-oh, I am in big trouble. I've spent all my money. I have nothing left. The country's financially bankrupt. What am I going to do? And then he realized he's going to come back to his father. But there was something that allowed him to realize what he needed to do. And that is in verse 16, 17, and 18. Let's take a look at what turned to be an asset, a gift to this young man. So it says when he, that's again this young man, when he had freely spent everything, he found himself in dire need. And he longed to eat the fill of the pods in which the swine fed, but nobody gave him any. Coming to his senses, he thought, how many of my father's hired workers have more than enough to eat, but here I am, dying from hunger. Now, what I want you to do is just, and I'm going to set this up, and I'll give you a couple moments to do it, is to look at those three verses. You're going to notice in those three verses the great asset, the gift that this young man had that allowed him to turn his life around. And if you know anyone who's spiraling out of control, it currently might be a son or daughter. It might be a family member, friend. They're getting ready to bottom out. What you want to pray for. We'll take a look, and you'll notice what it is. I'll give you a few minutes to take a look at it. If we could put that back on a board, fellas. Just take a few minutes to look at that and try to determine what asset did this man acquire that kept him from losing his life. Do you see it there? 4 lines up from the bottom. Coming to his senses. That turned out to be his asset. That's what kept him from ruining his life. He came to his senses. He realized, boy, what I am doing is wrong. I got to get back to my father. With my tail between my legs and said, Father, I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as you treat one of your hired hands. They have food to eat and I don't. That's exactly what he did. He came to his senses. What I find amazing is this. The gospel message is pretty clear. This young man is never identified by name. It just says a young man. Guy had 2 sons. The man isn't identified. The 2 sons aren't given names. This young son doesn't have a name. Why is that? Because it allows him to be fluid. It could be anyone. Any one of us could have been in our lives that young son. Even if you're a woman, you could have been the young daughter. Anyone who's older than a teenager here this morning, you think back on your life. You think about all the stuff you have been through, but more importantly, all the things you put yourself through. You think about when you were in your 20s and mid-20s and 30s. If you ever ran a little wild and got a little reckless and had a little bit of wanderlust and did a few things that right now no one remembers, at least you don't think they do, and you hope that they don't. But you think about your own life. And then when you watch someone who's a teenager or someone who's about to make a big mistake because they might be young and they might have a little bit of foolishness, they might have a lot of money, and that's a dangerous combination. What do you want to do for that person? Pray for them. Because you say to yourself, I have been in that position. I have done things in my life that are embarrassing now. And I can't believe I did it. You see, a priest can violate his vows. A married person can mar their marriage. A single person can soil their soul. An adult can abrogate their ambitions. A person can contaminate their commitments. But all those things, what you want to pray for is, Heavenly Father, especially if it's you spiraling out of control. Heavenly Father, give me the gift of coming to my senses, of realizing what it is that I'm currently doing wrong. You know, I was reading a book on President Kennedy. And in November 1962, so this would be a year before he was assassinated. November 1962, he was touring the Grand Canyon. When he was over the Grand Canyon, he was experiencing the Grand Canyon from the great heights of the southern rim. And he was standing there looking at the heights of the southern rim. It was just awesome. He said you could feel the altitude. You could feel how high you were and how deep that hole was. He says as he's standing at the southern rim, he decided to travel down, he and many others, to the very bottom of the Grand Canyon. And he was standing right alongside the turbulent Colorado River water. And then he said from the base of the canyon, he looked up. And then this is what he said about his feeling he had when he experienced the canyon from the bottom. He said, it's only when you've been to the depths can you truly appreciate the heights of the Grand Canyon. But that is true of life. It's when you have been to the depths of life, you truly appreciate the heights. If you have ever bottomed out in your life, you ever spiral out of control, it's when you get to the bottom and then you say to yourself, I have nowhere else to go except up. I can't get any lower than I am. I'm as low as you can get right now. Then you look up and you say to yourself, it looks so beautiful up there. I can't wait to get back. It's only when you've been to the depths can you appreciate the heights. This is a powerful gospel message. Especially if you know someone right now, and I suspect that one or two in Mass this morning know someone who right now, it could be your son or daughter, your brother, sister, your family member, friend, that is spiraling out of control. They're working their way down to hitting rock bottom. They might be on drugs or alcohol or any type of addiction, because addictions, when running wild and rampant, they can take a person's moral code and posture. And if you know someone that is totally on their way to bottoming out, what do you want to pray for? You want to pray for the fourth line up from the bottom of that section of the gospel. Heavenly Father, allow them to come to their senses. That's what saved that young man. Not that he ran out of money. Not that he was in a country that went bankrupt financially. What saved this young guy was coming to his senses. He thought. And for the first time in his life, he finally thought, I'm going back to my dad. Because there I had it all, and here I have nothing. Our prayer this morning for anyone you know, or anyone we don't know, but who is spiraling out of control, getting ready to hit rock bottom, Heavenly Father, give that person the gift of coming to their senses. Allow them to realize what they're doing right now that is wrong. They can be forgiven for those things, but bring them back. Allow them to taste how good life was before they left it, before they became prodigal and moved away in foolishness. Give them the gift of coming to their senses.